We're back with video 3 of our Sierra Blanca series of New Mexico's Forgotten History. We're heading further up Bonita Canyon to explore Argentina Canyon, the Crow and Parsons Mines, and heading up the forest road to a Turquoise prospect, the Fulmer mine, and finally down to the old stage stop in Nogal Canyon. So come on, let's head up the canyon. So we're up Bonita Canyon up above the lake now. We talked about the number of people that lived here and about how this is a human history. Behind me you can see the remains of an apple orchard that's been here since prior to the turn of the century. Some of these trees are very, very, very old. Still quite a number of apples on them. All of this land belongs to the city of Alamogordo now. But it's just kind of interesting to see these old orchards scattered up and down here in the old home sites that used to exist here. Remember, all of this is still essentially, or was essentially, unpatented and patented mining land that was here in the bottom of the valley. These were old mill sites. So behind me you can see what the forest used to look like prior to the Little Bear Fire. We're up the trailhead toward Argentina Canyon. I keep forgetting how to say that. It's really, really, really pretty, but it's also really, really young. That's the important thing to remember about it. Those trees are relatively young. I also wanted to give some kudos to the Forest Service for their ability to fix the problem with access into Argentina and Big Bear and all the other trailheads that were here. Really great job with the campgrounds and the trailheads here. You really should come up and take a look and do some hiking. And kind of the last of the comments that I wanted to make here, the old Maud mine is up the road here. The road to the Great Western is right up here behind us. The Great Western Road is closed. I doubt you could even get a razor up there right now, but you can certainly hike it, and it's a beautiful view up there. When I talk about patented mining claims, please remember that those are fee simple property. In other words, they're private property. You don't have any right to go walking across that. That's just like somebody walking into your living room. Now, if it's an unpatented mining claim, the only way they can restrict your access is if it's for your own safety. But if it's patented, well, it's fee simple property, it's private. So enjoy the forest, but stay off of other people's property. And it is beautiful here today. So I wanted to talk briefly a little bit about some monuments that you'll find out here. We're up Tan Bar Canyon. On our way up to the Parsons mine. We're actually in the area of the Crow Lode and the renowned OK, which is up here. But behind me you can see a sign on a tree, and this tree's been blazed. You can still see the notch right here. This is a bearing tree for a private property corner. Please don't shoot those. They're really, really important to surveyors, and they help maintain private property boundaries, which are just as important to you, the general public, as it is to the private property holder. That prohibits encroachment by private property holders onto your land, the general public land. So back up in this direction is the renowned OK. It's right on the edge of the White Mountain Wilderness, and I mean quite literally on the edge of the White Mountain Wilderness. And it's the same vein system that comes across the valley here into the Crow Lode. There's some pretty good silver intercepts up there, but that mine is closed, and it's been closed by the Abandoned Minelands Bureau, so please don't go digging it open. Right after it was closed, some folks came up and busted all the concrete out and tried to get back in there, and then they've had to reclose it again. So that just costs us as taxpayers even more money when somebody has to come back and close that. The Crow Lode, right back over here behind me, there used to be a great big bunkhouse that was here. It might have possibly been a hotel once upon a time, but I kind of doubt it. The Crow didn't have a whole lot of historic production until Ira Young actually had the property. The surface, I'm not sure who it belongs to, but the mineral rights still belong to the estate of Ira Young. Ira died November 10th of 1990, and Jill shortly thereafter, but I think the estate still has the minerals. Ira was walking down the drift one day. They'd been doing some exploration, hadn't been doing very well. He was smacking the left-hand rib with his rock hammer and sounded hollow, so he knocked a chunk of it out, and there was a whole bunch of native silver that was actually back up in a vug behind that. I don't know how many thousands of ounces of native silver Ira pulled out of that, but it was a bunch. And that was enough to start his mining company and get him started on the road that he eventually ended up being one of the premier small miners in the state of New Mexico. I miss Ira a lot. He's a wonderful fellow. So that's the Crow lode. Everything is closed over there now, so please don't go digging in there. Ira was very efficient at getting all the silver out. There's nothing left to see, and I don't think anybody's been back in those workings since the middle 90s. Definitely very closed. So we're here at the site of the old Parsons Mine. The Parsons Mine, also known as the Hopeful. The Hopeful is actually just right up here, the open cut that was the Hopeful. And they were pretty hopeful because R.C. Parsons discovered the deposit sometime in the late 1880s. And where we're actually standing, all of this used to be underneath a 4 to 5 story building with a very large winding gear on top of these concrete foundations up here that led up to the open pit, or open cast at that point. There used to be a small aerial tram that led down here. These 2 boilers that you see behind me are 2 of the small ones. There used to be 8 larger boilers here. And just down below me here is a bunch of winding gear. We're going to go take a look at that. And part of the old crusher system is still there. The Parsons really never did a tremendous amount of gold production. I think the most I've ever seen accredited to it is about 25,000 ounces. And you're probably thinking, boy, that's a lot. But back then gold was $13 to $18 an ounce. So that wasn't a huge amount of money at that time. R.C. Parsons is also kind of a interesting character. Evidently bandits tried to break into the mine one night, or into the building. His family lived there too, and there was a small gunfight with R.C. fired through the door. No one's really sure who got hit or who got scared or anything else, but just goes to show you that crime was even active back then. There's some rumors, of course, that R.C. and Billy the Kid had actually had a shootout, but Billy the Kid had been many years in the grave at that point, so it certainly had nothing to do with that. Part of the old stage route came down this canyon here that's now blocked off by those gates, and went back and over the hill and into Nogal. So there was a stage that came through here down to the old Parsons Hotel, which is just down below us a ways here. That's private property now, and I didn't want to stop and video there. We will be showing you some pictures of the old Parsons Hotel and what the Hopeful actually looked like. Do remember that this is on the what do they call that? The list of historic places, or the register of historic places for the United States. The Parsons and the Hopeful Mine are. So as I mentioned, this is part of the old crusher circuit that was here. R.C. Parsons actually put in a cyanide mill here. Cyanide technology wasn't really as advanced as it is today. As a matter of fact, he was one of the forerunners of cyanide milling. And that was what this was part of. It's also interesting to note that down below us here on the way down Tan Bark Canyon down to the old Parsons Hotel, those great big meadows that are there that people love to camp on, those are actually old tailings ponds. There's no cyanide left there. It's long gone. Groundwater and sunlight take care of that. It's been gone for centuries. Well, not centuries, but a long time. Just always be kind of sure and careful of what you camp on. They do get crazy muddy, and every now and then there's the possibility of somebody getting seriously stuck out there. So if you do pull out on top of those wonderful, beautiful meadows, make sure that it's not raining, because you might stay there for a little while. So we're headed up Forest Road 108 above the Parsons Mine. When you leave the Parsons Hopeful and you head back over the hill to Nogal Canyon, it's important to remember that this is not the old stagecoach route that came over from the Helen Ray American Mine and down Philadelphia Canyon over there, and then over the hill. This road was put in by Cleveland Cliffs in the late 50s and early 60s as an exploration project for the Rialto mine. The Rialto was located by miner D. Gaylord, and that's spelled M-I-N-O-R. Mr. Gaylord was extremely prominent in locating, financing, and exploring the majority of the mines in this district. He and Rolla Wells, you'll find their names on almost all of the patents in this area. They were extremely prominent mining men. A lot of the big flat spots you find on this road coming up through here, those are drill pads. Some of them I even put there. And those are drill pads for either reverse circulation drilling or core drilling for mineral exploration. We're headed up to a turquoise prospect now, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So here we are at the Turquoise prospect up near the top of 108, just before it goes over the hill for Nogal Peak. And we're going to walk up and take a little look at that. So follow me. So we're up here at a turquoise prospect that anybody that worked here pretty much knew about in the very early 90s. Actually, I think about 1989 through about 1992. There was a relatively large open cut right here. Marlo Sharp and Pete Peterson and a few other folks were mining turquoise out of this. It was extremely pretty turquoise and very, very nice. It's confined to little tiny narrow veinlets and slips and a fault that runs right through here. They took that pit down to about 25 foot deep, so if you come up here and you're thinking you're going to dig in the old diggings, you won't. They went down as far as practically possible with impact tools and got so deep that they finally had to quit. Turquoise is not a locatable mineral under the 1872 mining law, so they really couldn't file a claim here. And we're actually on the Rialto prospect, as I mentioned, located originally by miner D. Gaylord, and then the claims were restaked by the Sharp family with Witt and Simple, and they held those all the way up until Marlowe's death. I'm not sure who actually owns the property now with respect to the claims. Right up here on top of the hill, there's some drill pads that I helped put in. One of those is really beautiful, great place to spend the night and watch the stars. And just past the cattle guard up here to the left is the trailhead for the Nogal Peak Trail, as well as you can join the Crest Trail 25 right around in that area. So if you do come up here, spend a few minutes and look and see if you can find any little tiny pieces of turquoise. There's still some around. So we spent a few minutes while we were up here, and we picked up some flakes, a little bit of paint, and a few other odds and ends. We're going to leave them here, spread them back around so you can find them. But this is what the turquoise looks like up here. We're here at the Fulmer adit. The Fulmer is actually on the Rialto prospect. Again, this was a miner D. Gaylord property in the very beginning. The whole Rialto prospect is a big molybdenum mine. Molybdenite is the principal ore. I've got a piece of it here in my hand. We'll put a picture up on the screen. Moly is used as a hardener for steel. This drift behind me goes back in about another, as I remember, right about 275 feet. There's some really nice moly intercepts on it. Please don't try and dig your way in there. I was very efficient when I closed it. It's closed for a good solid 75 feet beyond the plug that's in the collar here. There's really not enough moly in the Rialto to make it particularly economical, especially when they closed Cuesta up north near Red River. It's interesting to note, though, that the extension of this drift and the original geology, it was all done by my mentor, Dr. George Griswold, out of New Mexico Tech. George and I, we go back a long ways, or we went back a long ways. George has since passed, but he was a wonderful man and a tremendous geologist and an excellent mining asset for the state of New Mexico. So this is the Fulmer. Please feel free to pick in the dump occasionally and see if you can't find a nice moly specimen like this one. So from here we're going to go down the hill here to the old stage stop and then head on down Nogal Canyon, take a look at some things down there. We're in the bottom of Nogal Canyon where Forest Road 400 and Forest Road 108 come together. And we stopped here for a reason, obviously. The old stone wall behind me marks what used to be a horse change station on the stage route that came from White Oaks across the plains through Carrizozo to the old town of Nogal, which wasn't where it is right now. Then up Dry Gulch to the American Helen Ray Mine area, across over and into the Rockford area, then up the canyon here and up and over the top just right down here. And then down into Parsons, the town of Bonita City, and on down the way to Fort Stanton. That stage didn't run for very long. I'm not entirely sure even who operated it. I've heard so many different rumors that it was Butterfield, and who knows who actually operated it. I certainly don't. What I do know is that the Southern Pacific was trying to bring people into this area. They had some land they needed to get rid of. There were a couple of circulars published in 1895, and then another one published in 1901 that both mention this horse change stop, as the authors, extolled the virtues of this area and the climate and everything else, and including changing horses right here. I'd be kind of careful exploring around here. There's a fair old amount of poison oak. Wrong time of the year for it for us right now, so we don't have to worry about it, but it's definitely here. Coming up next is the last video of our Sierra Blanca series. We'll be taking a look at Tommy LeMay's water dog claim, the old Forest Service stables of Loma Grande, and reviewing some interesting geology. We'll maybe even have time to do some rock collecting.